habit pattern brought from the past, minus the sun. That is, without the solar growth of this lifetime, before you've done your solar outreach. So it's your automatic, instinctive action from the past, good, bad, or indifferent, that you can carry further, develop if you want to, but it's up to you, like everything. Now, the converse of that is the formula where you add the sun to the ascendant and subtract the moon. And many people call that the part of spirit. And I think the name is, like the part of fortune, not really the best, but I haven't thought of a better one. Part of growth, maybe. If we think of the sun as something we're reaching for, enlarging, expanding, doing more of as we get older in life, then similarly, adding the ascendant to the sun and subtracting the moon would mean we're going to do our personal action in that direction, that sun urge, letting go, taking away some of the instinctive things from the past, the moon things. We're going to drop some of the things from the past and move in new directions. So I think of that part of spirit as a soul urge to go further, but it isn't necessarily spiritual. It may be to make more money, it may be to develop artistic talent, maybe to be in a relationship with somebody else, anything. But it's just an emotional urge to carry that further in your life. The general symbol used for that is S in a circle, and unfortunately that same symbol is used for the part of sickness. So we have a confusion when it comes down to handling both names and symbols. There really is no totally agreed on set of names or symbols. What I would like to suggest, not for the part of spirit, but for all the formulas where you add the planet to the ascendant and subtract the sun. And I was going to say you can do this with all of the planets. You don't have to do it just with the moon. You can add every planet to the ascendant and subtract the sun and get a whole series of these points, which would theoretically be, again, like another form of the alphabet. Part of fortune like another moon, where you're doing a moon thing. Where you add Mars to the ascendant, doubling up the Mars thing. You're going to do an action thing really strongly. If you add Saturn, many people call that the part of karma, in the sense of facing the law, the limits, the consequences. And in all cases, ascendant as action, doing something, overt action, the cardinal quality, but especially so with the first house, Aries, Mars. You do your thing in action. And so you're doing whatever that planet represents. The part of Neptune, where you add Neptune to the ascendant, some people call that the part of self-undoing. I think that's unfortunate because that implies the negative side of Neptune. It does not have to be negative. It can be very positive. It can be the part of spiritual healing, the part of artistic talent, the part of visions of a perfect world, where you're doing something to make a more beautiful world. But it's just the basic principle, I think, is doing something that has the quality of that planet, whatever it is. And what I would like to suggest as a symbol for this basic formula is to put the planet itself in a circle. So that would mean the part of fortune would be the moon in a circle. The part with Saturn would be Saturn in a circle. Or with Mars, Mars in the circle. And you can do that for all the planets. If we just do that for that one basic formula where we're doing something before or without the help of that solar growth principle, that outreach of the sun. Now, every once in a while you will find really interesting things. If you look at these auxiliary additional Arabic parts, one of the striking ones is Nixon, again. His part of karma, if you want to call it that, or part of Saturn, falls conjunct his sun. Did he need that again? He's got the node of Pluto on his sun. We put the part of Saturn on his sun. It's like a Saturn-Sun conjunction, which he already had with Sun in Capricorn, the same effect. Power drive, over and over and over. And that's what I mean when I say themes, that a chart will emphasize a basic theme, and you can see it so many different ways, and every time you add a new technique, a new tool, you'll see it again. And during Watergate, what would be appropriate for Watergate? In one word, Neptune. unfortunately, the negative side of Neptune. During the period, the 2 years of Watergate, his progressed sun was conjunct his part of Neptune in Pisces in the 7th house. Just, it's overwhelming when you get into these things and you see the order repeated over and over and over. Every way you look at the chart, you see the order repeated. The same basic meaning, the same basic themes coming in. What? Even the name Watergate, right. This particular chart on the right here, I'm going to go into that in a few minutes. We have an interesting combination there. If you look at the nodes, notice that he has Neptune in the 12th house, and he has the north node of Mercury conjunct that Neptune, and he also has the south node of Mercury conjunct the part of Neptune, ascendant plus Neptune minus Sun. Now, if we just looked at the chart, we would say, well, we could allow a wide Mercury-Neptune conjunction. That's 11 degrees. But you can allow a wide conjunction up to 11 degrees, but by gosh, it's wide, not really very important. And we could say, yes, and in progression also, Neptune moved into Mercury by progression moved into the Neptune house. So that says, again, there's a Mercury-Neptune contact there, doing something that combines Mercury and Neptune. And when we see the north node of Mercury on Neptune and the south node of Mercury on that part of Neptune, we say, wow, there it is again. Really, it is a theme in the chart. It is important. So that's just an example of the kind of thing that I mean. You can also see that the north node of Saturn is squaring Neptune, and the south node of Saturn is squaring Mercury. So that says there's some kind of problem there too, connected with power, connected with limits, connected with law, with rules, with what we can do, what we can't do, and what we have to do, with the Mercury-Neptune function. Remember, the Mercury mind is the conscious reasoning mind that's looking at the world right here and now, very clear. It's either very general with Gemini or it's very detailed with Virgo, but it's right here now dealing with the world of the physical senses and logic. That's the Mercury mind. And Neptune, the visionary, the dreamer, the mystic, looking for the final infinite love and beauty, the perfect world. The artist, creating beauty, the savior, the healing, helping person, or the victim who wishes the world were beautiful, tries to persuade someone to give it to him, cops out and runs away in a variety of different ways. We can also, I just put one more in there that was a close node square, North Ceres square Mars. And that just says there's some kind of conflict there in personal action. I want to do what I want to do, Mars, and the work in the life series and the security, especially in Cancer. And of course, the chart's already said there's a challenge there. We've got Mars opposite the Moon. So we can see he's got some cardinal dilemma going there. Mars says free soul, Aries says free soul, Libra says equal partner, Moon says baby or mother. And they're all, mixed up. It's the effect of a T-square in just two planets, because the principle of Cancer comes in from the Moon. So it's added to the Aries-Libra mixture. So this node of Ceres just adds a little more to it, some kind of problem in this area of accepting security from others or giving security of others or handling his own security in his work in the world. Now, we'll go back to that chart in just a few minutes, but the main idea I want to get across is just this idea of working this way with Arabic parts logically. And with the Uranians, they do this with everything. I mean, they take every factor in the chart and add every 2 and subtract every 3rd. So they end up with hundreds of these, literally, hundreds of these Arabic parts or planetary pictures. And it can get kind of overwhelming. But you can decide how far you want to go with all of these theories. It's just a matter of knowing what is being done and getting some kind of way to work with it. And I think you can do that if you're just really clear about your 12 principles. What is the ascendant? Personal action. What is the other planet involved? We're going to be doing something active with that planet. If it's a dreamer, maybe we're just going to do a dreaming thing. But we're going to do something appropriate for that part of life. And we're going to do it without the help of that solar principle, that ego thrust of the sun. Okay, the other thing, I don't remember if anything else was listed on your program, but I think we listed fixed stars. I'm just going to say briefly one word. I was going to, if I had time, I was going to do a little more on that. But just at the very beginning of this session on Monday, I did mention that the ancients used the stars a great deal more than we do now. But they used them in their visual positions, ascending, culminating, and setting, and they didn't use them by longitude, which is where most modern astrologers use them, if they use them at all. They use their longitude positions, which means you go from the sun, from the star, you throw an arc, a line, over to the ecliptic, and then you measure along the ecliptic to say that's where they are. Well, they aren't there on the ecliptic, obviously, they're somewhere else. They may be much higher in the sky. And if you threw the arc to the equator instead, you'd get a different distance from 0 Aries, because the latitude makes a very big difference, how far north or south they are. So there's a kind of open question about the handling of the stars in terms of longitude or right ascension, and the problem of them being very far north and south. I haven't really done that much with the stars, but I have been very fascinated in the last couple of years to hear the theories of George Noonan, who is a PhD in mathematics in San Diego, and he does have a couple of books coming out sometime probably early next year if Vulcan Books gets on the stick. They are a presentation of a lot of the theories of ancient astrology, which have really not been readily available to astrologers. And anything that comes out like that is a theory to be tested. You don't believe it, you just test it. But it's interesting to have it, to try out. And he goes into this whole bit. And the ancients apparently worked a lot of different ways with this. They didn't just look at the planet that was rising, the star that was rising, and the star that was culminating at the midheaven, and the star that was setting. They also looked at those three positions when the sun was on the ascendant, rising, when the sun was on the midheaven, culminating, and when the sun was on the descendant, setting. So they ended up actually with 12 positions. Your own sidereal time, stars rising, culminating, setting, sun on the ascendant, stars rising, culminating, setting, sun on the midheaven, stars rising, culminating, setting, and sun setting, descendant, stars rising, culminating, and setting. So altogether it's 12 positions that you can have stars. And we have done a program to do this. I just haven't had enough time to do very many charts. We've run a couple dozen maybe only on it of well-known people or people that I know personally or family. You try it out first on the people you know, then you try it out on anybody who's handy. But so far the only conclusion I have is that sheer number is not important, because Hitler, who was certainly one of the most important figures of the last 100 years, had fewer stars in these prominent positions than most of the people we've run. So sheer number is not important. It does probably matter which star, and we are using a very limited orb, 1 degree orb, and so you do have to have accurate time. If you don't have accurate time, forget it, because obviously you're not going to have the sun in the right degree or the right degree rising. So unless your time is pretty sure, there's no point in even bothering with this. What we hope to do eventually is get some clearer ideas about the meaning of the stars, because the ancient traditions that have come down are extremely negative. Any of you who have read these books about the meanings of the stars, they're full of things like you're going to lose your eyesight and be blind, you're going to have your head cut off, you're going to be hanged, you're going to disgrace, dishonorment, or whatever. They're just full of negatives. And of course these traditions were accumulated in a period when life was like that, when a lot of people did go blind and they didn't have doctors who knew what to do about it. They didn't have eyeglasses. When a lot of people did get their heads cut off or starved to death or were carried off to slavery or whatever. So they have reflected the negative, critical, crisis kind of life conditions in these associations. So what I suggest is not really accepting any of these, but looking for a way to associate the star with the basic 12-letter alphabet in terms of a principle that can be good or bad, depending on how we're handling it. And Noonan has offered us a way to do this, which may turn out to be really interesting, really valuable. We won't know till we test it a lot more. But he has taken the spectrographic class of the stars, and they are divided into 7 spectrographic classes in astronomy, ranging from O, which is high oxygen content, down to M, which is heavy metals. So there's 7 categories, and what does that word 7 ring bells for? Sun, moon, and 5 traditional planets. There's our 7. So he has associated the sun and the moon and the 5 traditional planets that were known to the ancients before telescopes with these 7 spectrographic classes, depending on whether they're high in oxygen down to high in metals. And he says the oxygen high stars are associated with the moon, and the heavy metal ones with Saturn. And Mars is the next heaviest metal. The sun comes in the middle. Let's see, after moon, he puts Jupiter and then Venus, and then Mercury's in the middle, and then the sun and Mars and Saturn. That's the way it goes. And it is true that the ancient world often classed the sun as a malefic, and the Hindus still do. The Hindus consider the sun and Mars and Saturn and both nodes as malefics. So they have 5 malefics and only 2 benefics, Venus and Jupiter. You see, life is harder in India. You know, we read into life what we experience, our own conception, and what we experience. At any rate, what Noonan says is that the ancient traditional associations of the stars with certain planets, which you'll find when you read the books, they may say this star is a Jupiter star, or this is a Jupiter-Saturn star, or it's a Mars star, or it's a Mars-Mercury star, or whatever. He says there's a very high correspondence between the assignment of those planets, connecting those planets to certain stars as their nature, and the spectrographic classes that he's selected. Now, I don't know if the correspondence is really as high as he says it is. He claims it's like 75 or 80% accurate. And my impression, and just a little bit of work with it, it's not really that close a correspondence. It's not that accurate. But we don't know. We have to check a lot more. I just want you, again, to know what's being done in astrology, what work is going on, and offers interest for the future. One of the, for instance, glaring discrepancies is that according to spectrographic class, Algol is a Jupiter star. And all the ancient traditions called Algol the most violent star in the heavens, the most dangerous and deadly star in the heavens. You were sure to be decapitated or hung or something, lose your life by losing your head. And there's just enough evidence to support some of these principles so that, you know, I always have this feeling if there's a lot of smoke, there's probably a little fire there, even if it's only a little fire. There's something there, some germ of truth there hiding. And I have had a few cases that were kind of intriguing on that kind of thing. At any rate, this is all I'm going to say that for the moment about the stars. They're just potentially another way of seeing the alphabet if we can associate the stars with one of the planets, or 2 of the planets if they're somewhere in the middle. And we're just starting to work on that, now that we've got a computer to do a lot of the work for us. Now, I do want to go ahead and look a little bit at these charts before we close for the day.